Welcome to Radio Onda UER, Università Europea di Roma. I'm Carlo Climati. Today we interview Professor Gianluca Casagrande. Gianluca Casagrande is Director of GREAL in Università Europea di Roma, in Rome, Italy. Professor Casagrande, could you please explain what GREAL is?
First of all, good morning. Thank you for this opportunity of sharing our experience. GREAL is an acronym standing for Geographic Research and Application Laboratory. Basically, it is the Applied Geography Laboratory of the European University of Rome. And we are part of the LabGeoNet network, which is a network of 27 Italian geography labs from various universities in Italy. This network is supposed to allow cooperation among the different laboratories, especially considering that each lab has somewhat its own expertise, and I would say is specialized in specific matters. And our vocation, so to speak, as a geography laboratory is reflecting on the opportunities of using technologies, particularly low-cost technologies, for geographic applications in several fields. Normally, our two main research lines in this historical phase for the lab are historical geography and geohistory and collaboration with archaeologists in several applications, and also geographic observation in matters related to environmental protection, and particularly on the problems related to the interaction between human presence and activity and the environment, especially in specific, I would say, more critical, geographically critical areas such as the Arctic region, for instance.
We know about your very interesting experience called Polar Quest. Could you talk about it?
Polar Quest is actually the name of a cultural association founded in Switzerland by an Italian journalist and communicator, Paola Catapano. She works normally at CERN in Geneva. And she founded this association to foster and to promote scientific expeditions towards the polar regions. Particularly, I've been involved in two of them, Polar Quest 2018 and Polar Quest 2021. Polar Quest 20, both expeditions went to Svalbard archipelago, and I will specify later why. The two expeditions were involved in several types of scientific observations. Particularly, the Polar Quest 2018 used an experimental, I would say, technological demonstrator of a sail yacht equipped as a scientific laboratory, but itself built according to environmental sustainability criteria, such as passive architecture, etc. The design and command was by Swiss skipper Peter Gallinelli, and the boat was itself experimental in nature and was it was a very interesting experience to be on board as an onboard scientist and doing our own research activity among other people in this situation. In 2021, we went with an Italian boat, actually sail yacht Best Explorer, under skipper Giovanni Acquarone. It was a different boat, a different kind of operation. Particularly Best Explorer and skipper Acquarone were involved, were actually the first Italian vessel and Italian crew to be involved in the circumnavigation of the entire Arctic region between 2012 and 2019. Particularly this year, Best Explorer was equipped as a floating laboratory itself, and it was used for several different kinds of geographic observations. Particularly, this was in particular my own activity on board was to perform geographic observations. GREAL was specifically involved in doing expeditive drone surveys by the use of small drones in order to obtain aerial images and also maps of places of interest. Other experiments and scientific programs on board involved the use of a sonar, a compact sonar, to map poorly charted or completely uncharted areas of the local seafloor, and other environmental observations involving eDNA sampling, etc., were performed by particularly the Swiss Polar Institute. The sonar survey was led by Norbit Subsea and the University of Gdansk under a young researcher called Dominic Palgan, who was in charge of this particular scientific program. The reason for going to Svalbard in both cases was that this archipelago is quite peculiar among other Arctic regions because it is somewhat a region in which it is possible to test what the future of human presence and activity in the Arctic will be, because it's an area of relatively consolidated, geographer, we would use territorialization, which means that human presence and activity is well established. And at the same time, it is possible to observe the impact of human presence and activity on the one hand, and on the other hand also the possible means by which this pressure can be eased somehow and environmental protection can be implemented for future expansion, I would say, of the same method in the entire Arctic region.